Good morning. Thank you, President Elsner, for your kind and I'll call it overly generous introduction, and for the honor of being with each and every single one of you on this impossible to overstate how big of a day this is for our graduates. As President Elsner and I have discussed, he knows I'm a long-standing admirer of Marian University, and specifically of Dan, my friend, his transformative leadership. I was thinking about how to describe President Elsner in one word, and transformative really is it, and the best one I could think of for his role here at Marian, which was to take, back some years ago, a good and fine, resilient college and make it even better. In my most previous chapter in life as governor of the great state of Indiana, I had the joy and pleasure of traveling the state border to border, and the country and the world, quite frankly, and each opportunity after we set sail was an opportunity to brag about Marian. And you gave us a lot to brag about. It's not every state in the country that can claim a recently founded medical school, and one that is, with evidence here today, flourishing. Congratulations, President Elsner, on a job well done. And if I may, very quickly, express my gratitude to others that Chancellor Britt had also singled out, first and foremost to the trustees and the faculty here at Marian University for preparing these graduates and helping them grow, as Oscar just pointed out, with purpose here at this institution. Thank you to the staff, to Katie, to the photographers, to everyone that made sure that every big thing and small thing was taken care of so that today could be as close to Oscar perfect as possible for those who have achieved such an accomplishment. Thank you to the 2025 graduates for listening, or maybe I should say for enduring one more quick lecture, and I promise you mine will be quick, before celebrating your degrees and commencing on with your new life. And no, I've not forgotten, as was already mentioned, another very important group here today, and that's the parents and the loved ones, family and friends, those who had the backs of these graduates every step of the way. That moral support oftentimes in life is what really gets you through. When we start to question, am I up for it? Or the challenge comes to your doorstep. It's family and friends that get you there. Certainly having my wife here reminds me of that. Now, with these, I think, appropriate expressions of gratitude shared, let me just say right out of the gate, working in the public sector as I did, especially since our administration invested so much in public health during and after the pandemic, I learned a big lesson that has since been reinforced time and time again, that the most indispensable part of a well-functioning healthcare system, which no government can legislate or spend into existence, are the people, you, who provide the care. These are some of the most challenging roles in society, done best by those who feel and answer that calling to this unique type of work with an unusual, as I've come to learn, this unusual balance, mix of technical expertise and human compassion. So I'm especially pleased that today's ceremony includes graduates of Marian's Wood College of Osteopathic Medicine, as well as students who've earned a Master of Arts degrees in teaching and in mental health counseling, Master of Science degrees in biomedical science, and a Doctor of Nursing practice degrees. I don't have to tell this audience, health is wealth. And what you provide enriches our neighbors, our families, our communities. One block, one street, one session, one diagnosis, one prescription, one person at a time. So congratulations to each and every one of you. Thank you for following this calling into these vital roles. Now, I've been a history buff for much of my life. And this being the month of May, and all the tradition and all the pageantry and all the excitement that happens at the end of this month, with the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500, the single biggest sporting event on planet Earth every single year, right down the street, where the idea for that was hatched right here on this campus, on this hallowed ground, Marian soil. My engine, as you can tell, is already revving for this day to come. But I cannot continue without making sure that everyone here today is also reminded or aware of an even more extraordinary chapter in Indiana's history that these graduates are now linked to. As many of you know, it's been ingrained in the proud teachings here at Marian University, tracing your roots to a school founded in a tiny village in Oldenburg, Indiana, back in, as was mentioned, 1851, by Sister Teresa Hackelmeyer and the order of nuns she gathered around her. Anyone who believes that America was built mainly on the backs of courageous frontiersmen needs to learn more about the Sisters of St. Francis Oldenburg and similar orders. These ladies had guts. Read about them. They got stuff done. And they had a belief system that was centered around compassion and peace and service. Think about this. At age 24, Sister Teresa made a very long and difficult journey of her own from her native land, not Ohio or Illinois, from Austria, to just like you follow her calling. The school she founded in Oldenburg became Marian College in 1937 and moved to Indianapolis, where it's now Marian University, and remains the only Catholic institution of higher learning in this part of our great state. The sisters trace their own values much further back, of course, than hatching the Indy 500 or the Civil War days back in the 1850s, 60s. They drew, of course, on the 800-year-old teachings of St. Francis of Assisi and his disciple, St. Clare. These Franciscan values still inspire Marian University today. They are not dusty relics. They are part of the ongoing conversation. They are timeless values of individual dignity, responsible stewardship, and peace and reconciliation. And there could not be a more important time to reflect on those values than right now and how they can be applied daily. I've certainly recently rediscovered that. You see, as President Elsner mentioned, I've long looked for common ground as a basis for problem solving. I hope that I'm not going too far out on a limb here to suggest that I have some common ground right now with Marian University's impressive graduates. Our common ground, I suspect, is that we're both experiencing that exciting, but also somewhat, as was mentioned, anxious sensation of being on the verge of something. You're on the verge of life after Marian University. Maybe looking at your new role, a new job, a new home. And I hope it's not out of Indiana, by the way. But in any case, I would just ask you to enjoy that balance of excitement and anxiety. Get used to it, because it's going to come back time and time again, as it surely has already thus far in your life. The feeling of being on the verge certainly came back to me a few months ago, when my 2 terms of 8 years came abruptly to an end. There's no playbook for what to do after an all-consuming role like that, where your adrenaline is flowing even as you sleep. It certainly also presented me with a clean slate of opportunity. And that clean slate gave me the luxury of some time to reflect. In particular, I've tried to answer the question, knowing about what I'm thinking about the future and realizing what I've learned in the past, that people ask me this question, which I take as a compliment, about how Indiana managed to mostly stay out of the political mud that has turned American politics so ugly at times. And so in preparing for this specific talk, I spent some time thinking about and considering Marian's Franciscan values by way of a context. It turns out, in my view, that constructive leadership in politics or elsewhere, other walks, arises from the same mindset that lets you make the most of being on the verge in the first place. It's a mindset with 3 real quick, important components. First, listen to people. Second, embrace innovation and the changes that come with it. And third, keep moving. Let me quickly give you a little flavor on each. First, listening is respect. Listening is openness. Listening is learning. Whether you're contemplating your future or contemplating the best way forward in difficult, challenging leadership situations, whatever it is, I always think about the global pandemic. Open your ears to better hear what others have to say, even if they're not a member of your tribe. St. Francis certainly modeled this in a value that Marian calls individual dignity. During one of the Crusades, he spent 2 weeks with Sultan Malik el-Kamil in Egypt. They didn't convert one another, but they listened to each other, and like a miracle realized, became friends. I'm not claiming any experiences of that magnitude for myself, but I do recall approaching a union hall once during my early time in public service, a feeling that was maybe a bit like a Catholic approaching a Muslim citadel or vice versa. Our team was promoting a different way that had been veered off the course of past practice, shall we say. And it didn't go over very well with the leadership there. And the vibe when I entered the hall, it was actually verbalized, was, "Don't bother to sit down. You won't be here long enough to get comfortable." But you know what? You can listen standing up too. And before we knew it, there was some common ground. And I was sitting down. And that spirit of cooperation, of actually listening first, with the building trades, has now lasted over 20 years. People will remember that you listened, maybe more so than what you said. And hopefully they'll extend that same openness to your ideas one day especially if you're delivering some tough news or tough medicine to swallow. And I get it, you can't accept every idea that you hear, nor should you. It's your life, it's your principles, and it's your accountability at the end of the day. But none of us knows all the answers, has all the options at our disposal. Other heads might help your idea become better. It brings me to what I call the embrace of innovation. One of the most pernicious myths about leadership is allowing criticism and seeking consensus equates to dumbing down your ideas. The opposite is, quite frankly, true. Testing ideas against other ideas always makes them better. After all, we know iron sharpens iron. It's the essence of innovation. You start with a problem that needs fixing. Maybe you have an idea about what to do. Someone else has another idea. Get together, and chances are you'll end up with a third approach that's a better way than both. Anyone in a high-tech startup would say, duh. It's somehow in public life. Too many people believe it's my way or the highway. And then we're surprised when the unchallenged schemes just crash and burn. It's no different than being on the verge of something. You have to make a plan. You have to implement, execute, and then test it against another plan. Amazing innovations and great new twists, even unicorns, tend to emerge when you do so. Francis, I believe, would consider this responsible stewardship. Ideas are gifts. Our time on this earth is a gift. Steward your gifts and make the most of them. And finally, whatever happens, keep moving. A Franciscan, I hope, would accept this under the value of reconciliation. But for this insight, as revealed to me personally, I must credit an elderly constituent of mine when I served as governor, whom I met by total accident. I was at an MCL cafeteria. Yes, in public life, you get to go to a lot of cafeterias. I consider that one of the best perks of the job. And I ran into an old high school friend, someone I hadn't seen in 3 decades more. He was helping his great-grandmother celebrate her birthday. And he came over to me and he said, "Do you remember me?" And I didn't quite recognize him. We'd changed a lot in the last 40 years. And after he told me his name, I instantly remembered him, and he started to look a bit more familiar. We had both changed a lot. And he said, "Would you go over and wish my great-grandmother happy birthday?" I said, "Absolutely. Where is she?" He pointed over, and I saw 3 balloons, 1, 0, and a 2. 102? I'd never met someone 102 years old and had the opportunity to talk to them. So, of course, I went over to wish her well and maybe ask a few questions. As a Black American in her 2nd century, let that sink in. She had seemingly seen it all, including a Klan rally, I'm sorry to say. She had experienced more than her fair share of ups and downs, but seemed none the worse for the downs, and so optimistic, so strong, full of wisdom that she had acquired throughout her life. So I asked her the question, the typical question, the greedy question, "What's your secret?" She said, "Keep moving. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Find something you love. Find something you're passionate about. Throughout life, it'll change, but find something you love and keep moving." How right she was. Keep what works. Change what doesn't. Let the setbacks tee up second chances. Try something new, a new discipline even, but find your groove in each new season and keep moving. It's when you stop when other things do too. She pointed next to her son Robert as an example, and she said, Robert, he's already retired. I said, well, how old is Robert? She said, 80. But he's slowing down. You got to keep moving. It's pretty simple. But for leadership of any kind, and for handling moments where you find yourself on the verge, I can't think of better advice. So to sum it up and close, so we can get on with the real reason why you're here and all the days to follow, because I can tell you are all ready. You leave Marian with such a solid foundation, full of knowledge, skills, maybe most importantly, values. And you're entering fields in which your knowledge and talents are sorely needed. You are the people who help people, and no AI stands a chance of doing what you do. What an enriching opportunity that lies ahead for you all. There are no secrets to success. You're going to have to work hard, work smart, always learn. But I would add 3 others. Listen, embrace innovation, and keep moving. Congratulations. Here's to your happiness. Godspeed.